As my luck would have it, I'd been dropped into the kind of novel women supposedly love. The kind the internet warns you about. A world where even Zeus or the Archangel Michael would get their asses handed to them. Where divorce settlement could strip a titan of industry of half his empire. This particular brand of divine made my blood run a little cold. Fortunately, I'd managed to flip the script. Instead of the long-suffering protagonist, I was becoming the villain. And this wasn't some tear-jerker anymore. This was a revenge fantasy. The plot had just reached the part where my wife's old flame, the one that got away, returns to the country. By accident, I picked up my wife's phone instead of mine and saw the Instagram story she'd hidden from me. It was a picture of her with him, a cozy selfie, captioned, "Welcome back. Tonight was on me." In the comments, someone had written, well, Isabella, a date night with Connor Hayes. Isabella had replied with a beaming emoji. Laugh it up, I thought, a bitter taste in my mouth. I clicked on her profile, a glutton for punishment, and scrolled through post after post she'd made invisible to me. A fire started in my gut, hot and angry. I might just be a character in a book, but right now, I was the one being played for a fool. The humiliation felt real, burning bright on my head for the world to see. Gritting my teeth, I opened their DMs. Thankfully, it was just flirty, nothing explicit. Just then, the lock on the bathroom door clicked. I took a deep breath, dropped the phone back where I'd found it, my fingertips still trembling with a mix of rage and disbelief. "Ethan, honey, can you come blow-dry my hair?" Isabella called out. She stepped into the bedroom wearing a sheer black nightgown, her hair dripping, her body a silhouette against the lamplight. I stared, my throat suddenly dry. The woman had legs for days. Legs I wanted to. Isabella's brow furrowed with that familiar look of impatience. "Hurry up, Ethan. I'm tired. Just dry my hair so I could go to sleep." The nerve of this woman. Ordering me around? After what I just seen, fine. If she wanted to play games, I'd be more than happy to indulge. "Of course, honey," I said, my voice dripping with false cheer. I walked over, and as I passed behind her, I gave her a firm smack on the ass. The feeling was electric. What are you doing?" A wicked grin spread across my face. "What do you think I'm doing?" She gasped and spun around, her wet hair whipping across my face, cool and smelling of roses. "Are you insane?" Her wide eyes were filled with disbelief. In 3 years of marriage, I'd never once been this forward with her. My grip tightened on the hairdryer, the fire in my chest roaring to life. We were heading for divorce anyway. I might as well collect some of the interest owed to the poor bastard whose life I now inhabited. I slid my arm around her waist and captured her lips with mine. "Just a little husbandly affection," I murmured, my thumb tracing the beads of water on her collarbone. Just as I expected, the tips of her ears turned a telltale shade of pink. In the original story, this ice queen of a wife always used busy with work as an excuse to avoid intimacy. Now I knew why. She was probably trying to stay pure for her long-lost love. The protagonist of this story, I had to admit, was built different. His stamina was off the charts. We put the car through its paces all night long, running the engine hot until dawn. I polished the headlights until they gleamed, buffed the finish until you couldn't help but touch it. Looking at this gorgeous machine that would soon no longer be mine, I couldn't resist taking it for one last spin. Amid the roar of the engine, Isabella's hoarse cries filled the air, complaining the speed was too much, too thrilling, her eyes wet with tears. As my fingers tangled in her hair, I felt her tremble. Interesting. So the untouchable Ice Queen could feel fear after all. The wild ride was over. I parked the car, killed the engine. The room fell silent. So quiet I could hear her heart hammering in her chest. As morning light filtered through the curtains, Isabella was turned away from me, fumbling with the clasp of her bra. The faint imprints of my fingers were still visible on the small of her back, like ink on rice paper. "I'm going to my college reunion tonight," she said suddenly, her voice lighter than the birds chirping outside the window. I feigned deafness, stretching lazily. What was that? When she turned, her usual haughty mask was back in place. Her red nails tapped against the vanity. "My college reunion is tonight. I won't be home for dinner." In the book, this conversation was supposed to happen last night. Tonight, Isabella would go to the reunion, and fueled by alcohol and a game of truth or dare, things would escalate. The original me, worried about her drinking, would show up early to take her home, only to walk in on her, and Connor locked in a passionate kiss. "It's on my way. I'll give you a ride after work." Isabella's hand, applying lipstick, froze mid-air. In the mirror, a flash of panic crossed her eyes. "You don't have to. Jenna is picking me up." My gaze drifted to the silk nightgown on the floor, torn to shreds. I nodded. "All right, be safe tonight, and don't drink too much." That evening, I arrived at the private club right on schedule. The two bodyguards I'd brought with me took up positions on either side of the suite's door, silent and imposing. A waiter approached. "Sir, I'm sorry, but the guests in this suite have requested not to be disturbed." I gave him a cold look. "My wife is in there. Does that rule still apply?" The waiter froze, sensing the palpable authority coming off me. He swallowed hard. "My apologies, sir. Perhaps you could call your wife and have her meet you out here." I pulled a crisp $500 bill from my wallet. "Get lost," I said, my voice low. His eyes widened at the cash, and he snatched it quickly. "Right away, sir. I'll get lost immediately." As he walked away, I heard him mutter, "Rich guys and their quirks. Shows up with bodyguards. Not like I could stop him from kicking the door down anyway. Son of a bitch." He thought I was an idiot. The moment I pushed the door open, I was hit by a wall of deafening music. My face was a mask of indifference as I scanned the room. The lights were dim, but it only took me a second to find Isabella. She was wearing a chic white pantsuit, paired with my favorite, black silk stockings. Connor Hayes was sitting right next to her, his arm draped casually over her shoulder. They were leaning in close, laughing and talking in low voices under the pulsing lights. I pulled out my phone and started recording, zooming in for a few close-ups. The flash went off like a gunshot, and the entire room fell silent. Then, a voice cut through the quiet. "Hey man, party's a party, but no flash. Keep the drama off the internet." Isabella recoiled from Connor, as if she'd been electrocuted. Her wide eyes reflected my silhouette, phone still held high. Ethan." I calmly put my phone away, my dress shoes crunching on the confetti-strewn floor. "Haha, my apologies, everyone. Didn't mean to spoil the mood." I gestured vaguely. "Please continue. I'm just here to pick up Isabella. Looks like I'm a little early." A strange quiet settled over the room until Connor suddenly laughed. He stood up, swirling a glass of red wine, his tie loosened around his neck. "You must be Isabella's husband, right? Care to join us for a round of truth or dare?" "I'd love to," I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. I unbuttoned my suit jacket, sat down, and picked up the dice shaker, ignoring the shocked stares. "But I should warn you, I'm a sore loser. Don't blame me if I ruin the party." The rattle of the dice on the felt table sounded unnaturally loud. Connor slid a shot of whiskey toward me, a challenge in his eyes. "Loser either drinks or answers a question." I saw Isabella tugging on his sleeve under the table and smirked, pushing the glass back. "Drinking is boring. Questions are much more interesting." A chorus of cheers and jeers erupted from the room. Isabella lost the very first round. Jenna, never one to miss a chance for drama, leaned forward. "If Connor had never moved abroad, would you have married him?" The light from the crystal chandelier danced on Isabella's eyelashes. She hesitated, glancing first at me, then at Connor. "Yes," she said. The room exploded. All eyes, filled with malicious glee, turned to me. They expected me to storm out defeated. After all, that was my established persona. The guy who loved Isabella so much he'd swallow any humiliation, who would wait at home for a few half-hearted words of comfort and come back wagging his tail. My presence felt different tonight, more imposing, but they still saw me as the same old doormat. "Well, what a touching love story," I said, swirling the ice in my glass, my eyes fixed on them with playful contempt. "Makes you think I should just get out of the way and let you two be happy, doesn't it?" The chatter died instantly. They all stared at me, then at Isabella, their faces a mixture of confusion and shock. Isabella, who had been slightly drunk, sobered up in an instant. She shot to her feet, knocking over her wine glass. The red liquid spread across the white tablecloth like a bloodstain. Her eyes were wide with disbelief, stunned by my words. How dare I speak like that? Especially after she'd so graciously let me have my way with her all night. Jenna quickly stood up, tried to smooth things over. "Ethan, it's just a game. Don't take it so seriously. You know how Isabella gets when she drinks. She just talks nonsense." She forced a laugh. "Besides, everyone knows you're the one she loves. Now apologize to her, or you'll be sleeping on the couch tonight." Connor stood up too. "Yeah, Ethan, don't be so sensitive. It was just a joke." He shrugged. "She was just teasing me because I just got back. It's ancient history." I let out a short, sharp laugh, my knuckles rapping on the marble tabletop. Relax. I could take a joke." My eyes narrowed. "Everyone knows you two were an item back in college. In fact, I should be thanking you, Connor. If you hadn't left the country, her first time wouldn't have been with me. Now, would it?" Connor slammed his dice shaker on the table. Wine splashed onto his expensive shirt. His eyes were cold as he glared at me, his voice a low threat. "You do well to remember that. But now I'm back." The air in the room froze. Isabella's face went white. I slowly undid my cufflinks, and then, in front of everyone, I grabbed a wine bottle and smashed it over Connor's head. The sound of shattering glass was like hitting a pause button on the universe. A moment later, as wine and blood streamed down Connor's forehead, the screaming started. "Ethan, are you crazy?" Isabella shrieked, grabbing my arm, her nails digging into my skin. I shook her off. "Just collecting a little interest," I said calmly. "This bastard comes back to town and immediately starts hitting on my wife. Did you really think I was just going to sit back and take it?" Isabella's face contorted with rage. "Ethan, what the hell are you talking about?" she yelled, pointing a trembling finger at me. "There is nothing going on between me and Connor. How dare you accuse me?" I glanced at Connor, who was being helped up, and then wiped my face, kicking him squarely in the chest and sending him sprawling again. "Nothing going on?" I turned and slapped Isabella across the face. "You post pictures with him on your close friends list that you block me from, and you have the audacity to say there's nothing going on? You have the nerve to post those cozy pictures, but not the guts to admit it." She staggered back, clutching her cheek, her high heels grinding on the broken glass. "Ethan," she screamed, her voice raw. You hit me." She held her face, her eyes wide with fury and shock. "You get on your knees and apologize to me right now. Then you apologize to Connor. If you don't, I'm calling the police, and you'll be finished." "Apologize?" That was a laugh. If it weren't for the money I'd lose in a divorce, I'd have walked out on her right then and there. "Go ahead. Call them." I straightened my tie and opened the door to the suite. My 2 bodyguards stepped inside. I gestured grandly at the stunned partygoers. "Do any of you know who I am? The name Blackwood? Anyone who took pictures or videos tonight, delete them. Every last one. Unless you want to find out the hard way that the Blackwood family is not to be trifled with." I turned my attention back to Isabella. "Call the police. I'm waiting. Let's see who in this city dares to meddle in my family's affairs." A wave of pure satisfaction washed over me. This wasn't the protagonist. This was the goddamn villain. The room was dead silent, everyone frozen by the sheer force of my threat. Isabella's hand, holding her phone, was shaking. Her red-polished fingertip swiped at the screen several times, failing to unlock it. "What's the matter?" Second thoughts. I sneered, pulling my own phone from my jacket. "Should I call for you?" "Ethan," she shrieked, lunging for my phone. "Are you insane? Do you have to make such an ugly scene?" I sidestepped her easily, catching her by the wrist. "Ugly." I leaned in close, my voice a whisper only she could hear. "You didn't think it was ugly when you told a room full of people you wished you'd married another man? We just spent all last night together, and you're already trying to trade up?" Her pupils contracted, her lips trembling, speechless. This was a side of me she had never seen before, and it terrified her. Connor struggled to his feet, blood still oozing from the cut on his forehead. He stumbled toward us. "Ethan, let her go. If you have a problem, take it up with me." Well, you all heard him," I announced to the room. "He said to take it up with him. I've never heard such a desperate request." I flicked my wrist, and my bodyguards instantly seized Connor, holding him up as they began to land heavy, methodical punches. "No, stop it." I said, "Stop, Ethan." Isabella cried, her voice breaking as she clawed at my arm. "Please, let him go. I'm begging you, just let him go." "Does it hurt to watch?" I said, grabbing her chin and forcing her to look at me. "Last night, when you were screaming my name, were you secretly thinking of him?" The question landed like a bomb. A few of the women in the room actually blushed and covered their mouths. Isabella's face flushed a deep crimson, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Ethan, you're a bastard." "I'm a bastard?" I let her go, calmly adjusting my cuffs. "Isabella, have you forgotten who cooks you dinner every night? Who stays up all night taking care of you when you have a fever?" With every question, I took a step forward, and she retreated until her back was against the wall. "Now your old flame is back, and you can't wait to jump in his arms." I reached out and wiped a tear from her cheek, my voice as cold as ice. "You make me sick." Her lips trembled, her makeup streaked with tears. It's not like that." "Not like what? You didn't deliberately hide your Instagram stories from me? You weren't deliberately getting cozy with Connor at your reunion?" I shook my head. "Isabella, I gave you a chance." "I didn't. I swear, we're just friends now," she sobbed, shaking her head frantically. "I only hid the story because I didn't want you to get the wrong idea." The suite door burst open, and the club manager rushed in with security guards. "What's going on here? Who's causing trouble?" His eyes scanned the room and landed on me. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to get out," I said without even turning to look at him. The manager's face hardened, but before he could say another word, one of my bodyguards stepped forward and discreetly flashed his credentials. The manager's expression went from angry to ashen in a heartbeat. He bowed repeatedly and backed out of the room, pulling the door shut behind him. Silence descended once more, broken only by Isabella's choked sobs. I took out a cigarette and lit slowly. Through the haze of smoke, the sight of Connor groaning on the floor was almost comical. "Ethan," Isabella suddenly grabbed the hem of my jacket. "Can we please just go home and talk about this?" I tapped the ash from my cigarette and laughed. "Home? Sure. My place or Connor's?" Her nails dug into my arm, her voice thick with tears. "Ethan, do you have to humiliate me like this?" I shook her hand off and crushed the cigarette out in Connor's wineglass. "Humiliate you? Isabella, are you even worthy of it?" Everyone in the room held their breath. Jenna started to step forward to intervene, but froze when my gaze fell on her. "From now on, you're moving out of the master bedroom," I announced. I pulled out my phone and dialed my lawyer in front of everyone. "Mr. Davis, prepare the divorce papers." Isabella lunged for the phone. "No, I won't sign anything." I easily pinned her wrist, whispering in her ear, "Did you really think I'd keep a woman who has another man living in her heart?" Connor, covered in blood, struggled up from the floor and roared, "Ethan, let her go." He was clearly trying to play the hero for Isabella, to cement his image as the good guy. I let out a cold laugh and signaled for my men to release him. "You like picking up my sloppy seconds that much, Connor? Fine. She's all yours." Isabella trembled with rage and swung her hand to slap me. I caught her wrist and, with a flick of my own, struck her across the face. She collapsed like a deflated doll, sobbing hysterically on the floor. I adjusted my suit and walked toward the door without a backward glance. "Ethan," she screamed from behind me, "you'll regret this." I paused at the door, turned, and gave her a cruel smile. "By the way, I forgot to mention, if you're not home tonight." My eyes hardened. "I'll start with your family." I then swept my gaze over the rest of the room. "And as for the rest of you, if a single word of what happened here tonight gets out, you'll all have to answer to me." With that, I walked out, the heavy door closing behind me and cutting off the sound of her cries. "The nerve of that guy, thinking he could touch my wife," I said, wiping my hands as I exited the restroom. One of my bodyguards spoke up. "Mr. Blackwood, should we arrange for someone to take care of that guy, Hayes?" "No need," I said, pausing. "I'm not a complete monster." A smirk played on my lips. "Just have Scarface send him to Thailand. Tell him to get a complete makeover. I hear the surgeons there are artists." At 3 a.m, the door to the master bedroom creaked open. Isabella stood there barefoot, still in the pantsuit from the reunion, though now her black stockings were torn in several places. "Ethan," her voice was a raw whisper. "Can we talk?" I didn't turn on the light. The moonlight cast her shadow long and thin across the floor. She slowly approached the bed and then, to my surprise, knelt down and wrapped her arms around my legs. I knew that after I'd left, she had taken Connor to the hospital. They'd run a battery of tests before she finally rushed home. I also knew that Connor had tried to hug her as she was leaving, but after the night's events, she had flatly rejected him. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Her tears soaked through my pajama pants, the warmth reminding me of how she'd felt beneath me last night. I tilted her chin up, my thumb brushing against the still red mark on her right cheek. "Did Connor drive you home?" She flinched and shook her head wildly. "No, I took an Uber." She suddenly lunged at me, tearing at my clothes, her warm lips pressing frantic, messy kisses against my bare skin. I pinned her wrists to the headboard, and she responded by moving against me, a silent, desperate plea. "Pathetic, aren't you?" I murmured, my hand squeezing the soft flesh of her thigh. "Spend the day crying over the one that got away, then come crawling to me at night?" Isabella just whimpered and writhed, and 2 buttons on her blouse popped open. The next morning at breakfast, Isabella did something she hadn't done in years. She made me oatmeal. "Ethan," she began, watching me nervously, "my dad's birthday is next week. Can you come with me?" I stirred the oatmeal, a small smile on my face. "We're getting a divorce." "Why would I go?" Her spoon clattered into her bowl, splashing milk on her new beige loungewear. "Divorce?" she whispered. "Ethan, please, let's not get a divorce." I put my spoon down and slowly wiped my mouth with a napkin. Isabella's fingers twisted together in her lap until her knuckles were white. "No divorce." I chuckled. "So I could just walk around knowing my wife is cheating on me?" She looked up sharply, her lips trembling. "I didn't cheat on you. I never slept with him." "Bullshit." I slammed my hand on the table. "You were cheating on me in your head. That's still cheating, isn't it? Or are there different shades of betrayal I don't know about?" The color drained from her face. I stood up, walked behind her, and leaned down to whisper in her ear. "I want a divorce, Isabella, but I don't want to give you a dime. You know what you have to do, right? If you agree to walk away with nothing, The business arrangements between the Blackwood family and your family can continue as normal. Otherwise, I won't be so generous. Her eyelashes fluttered violently. Ethan, she suddenly turned and threw her arms around my waist. I swear I'll never see Connor again. I'll block him, delete his number, everything. I pried her fingers off me. Too late, I whispered. As if on cue, her phone on the table buzzed, lighting up with Connor's name. Isabella lunged for it, as if it were on fire, but not before I saw the dozen unread message notifications on the lock screen. Looks like your old flame is getting anxious. The phone slipped from her grasp and fell onto the rug. As she knelt to pick it up, I stepped on it. Ethan, she looked up at me, her eyelashes still wet with tears. Let me explain. I bent down, picked up the phone, and unlocked it with her fingerprint. The last message from Connor was right there on the screen. Izzy, I'm not feeling well. Can you come over and check on me? I raised an eyebrow at Isabella. Well, look at that. The one that got away isn't feeling well. Shamelessly asking another man's wife to come over for a private visit. I tossed the phone back to her and turned toward the walk-in closet. I could hear her frantic footsteps behind me. Ethan, I'll block him right now. Look, she pleaded, her fingers fumbling with the screen, her nails making a scratching sound. I methodically knotted my tie, watching her trembling reflection in the mirror. Too late. Those two words made her shoulders slump. Ethan, she rushed forward and wrapped her arms around me from behind, her tears soaking through the back of my shirt. I know I was wrong. Please, just give me one more chance. I turned and grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at me. A chance? I sneered. You know what I hate most, Isabella? Your hypocrisy. You want your perfect past and your comfortable present all at once. Her pupils dilated, tears rolling down her cheeks. I released her and pulled a document from a drawer, tossing it onto the bed. Sign it. Let's end this cleanly. Isabella's hands trembled as she picked it up. When she saw the words, waive all rights to marital assets, she looked up at me, horrified. You really want me to leave with nothing? What else? I said, fastening my cufflinks. You expect me to give you half my fortune. She clutched the papers, her knuckles white. These 3 years, did they mean nothing to you? I walked over to her, bent down, and whispered in her ear. Oh, they meant something. You're beautiful. Your body is perfect. To be honest, I'll miss that part of you. I paused. But now, you're flawed. Isabella suddenly shrieked and ripped the divorce agreement to shreds. The pieces fluttered down between us like snow. I won't let you, Ethan, she cried, lunging at me and grabbing my tie. After 3 years of marriage, what do you think I am? Some toy you could just throw away. I let her struggle until she was exhausted, sliding to the floor in a heap. Then what do you want? I crouched down to meet her gaze. To stay Mrs. Blackwood while you secretly pine for your college sweetheart. Her nails scraped against the hardwood floor. I can sign a fidelity clause, she stammered, grabbing my wrist. If I ever contact Connor again, I'll leave with nothing. I swear. I couldn't help but laugh, my thumb wiping away her smudged eyeliner. Isabella, when did you become so pathetic? Her body went rigid, but she held on tight. Because I realized. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I think I'm actually in love with you. The words made me pause. In the original novel, she never once said that to him, not even at the end. Oh, I drew the word out. And what about Connor? She let go of my hand as if she'd been burned, her eyes darting away. That was just a teenage fantasy, a memory. I finished buttoning my suit jacket and walked to the door. You have 3 days to think about it. Sign the papers or... I glanced back at her. I'll make sure your family's business ceases to exist. Later that day, in the company boardroom, I was reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant knocked. Mr. Blackwood, your wife is here to see you. Let her wait, I said without looking up. I saw her silhouette pacing outside the glass door for a full 30 minutes before I finally signaled for her to be let in. Isabella was wearing a simple white dress, her hair down. She looked nothing like her usual glamorous self. Ethan, she placed a thermos on my desk. I made you some soup. I closed the file and studied her swollen eyelids. Have you made up your mind? She bit her lip and nodded, pulling the signed agreement from her purse. I'll sign, but I have one condition. I raised an eyebrow. Don't make me leave. Her fingers twisted the fabric of her dress. I love you. Please just let me stay by your side, even if I'm not your wife anymore. It doesn't matter. I stared at her trembling eyelashes for a long moment and then laughed out loud. Isabella, do you actually think this is touching? The soup in the thermos was still steaming, full of goji berries floating in the milky broth. Just like her wavering heart. I'm serious, she insisted. I slowly spun my pen, tapping the tip against the divorce papers. You know what you look like right now? A dog that got kicked by its owner, but still comes back wagging its tail. The blood drained from her face. The reflection in the floor-to-ceiling window showed her swaying on her feet. I stood up, walked over to her, and yanked open the collar of her dress. You say you love me, but what about this? My fingertip pressed hard on the bruise on her collarbone. Were you thinking about Connor last night? No, she gasped, her eyes glistening. I was thinking only of you. As she spoke, her hands moved to my belt buckle. The sun was high in the sky. By the time we were finished, it was well into the afternoon. I was starving. I drank the goji berry soup she fed me, mouthful by mouthful from her lips. Finally, I agreed to her request. After all, her particular brand of beauty was incredibly hard to resist. A month later, 4 bodyguards escorted a visitor into my office. It was Connor Hayes, fresh from his extended stay in Thailand. Except, I shouldn't call him Connor anymore. She went by Connie now. She had always been handsome. I had to admit, the transformation was remarkable. She was stunning. She bared her teeth, her face a mask of rage. Ethan, you animal. Connie's voice was now high and feminine, but the hatred in it was as potent as ever. I leaned back in my leather armchair, enjoying the show. What's the matter? Not happy with the new career path I've arranged for you? I gestured to the modeling contract on the table. $50,000 a month. Much better than your old junior manager's salary. Connie was shaking with fury, her newly manicured nails digging into her palms. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to see you in prison. I laughed and had a bodyguard hand her a business card. That's my lawyer's number. Feel free to give it your best shot. But if you lose, well, there will be consequences. The color drained from Connie's face. Satisfied, I stood up and adjusted my cuffs. Be a good little model, Connie, and stay out of my life. She collapsed onto the floor as if her bones had dissolved. I waved a hand, and the bodyguards escorted her out. When I got home that evening, Isabella was busy in the kitchen. Since the incident, she'd quit her job to become a full-time housewife. Honey, you're home, she chirped, running over in her apron to give me a kiss on the cheek. I squeezed her face. You're in a good mood. She blushed and looked down. I made an appointment with a therapist. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, I want, she said, twisting her fingers to fix our marriage. I studied her for a few seconds, then smiled. Come here. I want to show you something. I pulled out my phone and showed her the pictures of Connie. The screen showed the former campus heartthrob, now a bona fide bombshell. Isabella's eyes went wide. The spatula she was holding clattered to the floor. Is that the one that got away? I said, tilting her chin up. Feeling sentimental? Her eyelashes trembled, but she shook her head firmly. He deserved it. Her answer pleased me. I stroked her swollen lips as a reward. Good girl. That night, Isabella was exceptionally docile. She wore the black lace lingerie I'd picked out for her and knelt by the bed, toweling my hair dry. When a drop of water trickled down my abs, I heard her breath catch. Ethan, she whispered, leaning close to my ear. Let's have a baby. I paused. In the original story, she'd been militant about birth control, terrified of being tied down by a child. What's this? I pulled her onto my lap. Trying to save the marriage with a baby? She wrapped her arms around my neck, her soft chest pressing against mine. I want to have a baby that looks just like you. The moonlight cast shifting shadows on her face. I suddenly remembered the miscarriage from the original book. All right, I said, smiling as I untied the ribbon of her negligee. But first, I'll need to make sure you're. My fingers slid down, deliberately cruel. Clean. Her body went rigid for a second. Then she pressed herself against me even more eagerly. Only for you. It's only ever been you. Isabella's medical report lay on my desk. Every metric indicated she was in perfect health. When I flipped to the last page, I saw she'd drawn a tiny heart in the corner. The woman was getting good at this. Ethan, she cooed, gliding into my study with a plate of fruit. She speared a piece of cantaloupe and held it to my lips. Our anniversary is this weekend. What do you want for a gift? I bit down on the fruit and pulled her onto my lap. You decide. My fingers toyed with the ends of her hair. You're being awfully sweet. Are you trying to get something from me? Her ears turned bright red, but she feigned indignation. Of course not. I cut her off by pressing her down onto the desk, sending pens and papers scattering to the floor. Connie Hayes, it turned out, was a glutton for punishment. She was still trying to get revenge, but she had tragically overestimated her own influence and underestimated the sheer power of the Blackwood family. She filmed a tearful video, laying out all her evidence, detailing my supposed crimes against her. But before she could get through her monologue, the video was wiped from every corner of the internet. It had caused a brief stir online, but the narrative was quickly redirected. Suddenly, a story about a famous actress having a secret love child broke, followed by a scandal involving a movie star sleeping with his fans. The internet predictably moved on. Since Connie had broken our little agreement, I had to keep my word. That night, she was taken to a villa in the suburbs. I arranged for 3 very large, very unfriendly guys to give her a warm welcome. When Isabella found out, her face was a mask of panic. "Ethan, isn't that too cruel?" I smiled and pinched her cheek. "Cruel? It's just a little lesson." I raised an eyebrow. "Don't tell me you feel sorry for her." She smiled back, her eyes shining like stars. "It's what she gets. She's the one who chose to go against you. She deserves it." This was unexpected. In the book, she tortured the protagonist for years over this guy. I grabbed her wrist and pulled her into my arms. "Such a good girl." She settled onto my lap, her finger tracing circles on my collar. I figured out all that nonsense about the one that got away, the unforgettable first love. Her lips brushed against my earlobe. None of it matters as much as the man right in front of me. The candlelight flickered on her eyelashes. I thought about the ending of the original novel, how after the protagonist finally let her go, she fell apart and spent the rest of the book groveling to get him back. My fingers tangled in her hair. "What if Connor came back to you right now?" I asked, testing her. She froze for a second, then cupped my face in her hands. "Ethan, listen to me." The scent of roses filled the air. "For the last month, I've woken up every single day terrified that you were going to leave me." A tear fell onto the back of my hand, hot and heavy. It wasn't until I saw what happened to him that I understood. Her nails dug into my shoulders. "How merciful you've been to me." I tightened my grip on her waist, pulling her closer. "Prove it." Isabella's method of proof was more convincing than I could have imagined. The next morning, she dragged her aching body out of bed and spent 2 hours in the kitchen. My bodyguard called. Connie had apparently made a scene at the villa, threatening to jump off the balcony. In the end, she lacked the courage and climbed back down. "Tell her I don't want a repeat performance," I said into the phone, "and wire her $1 million. Consider it compensation." Just then, Isabella emerged from the kitchen carrying a platter of breakfast burritos. She sat down beside me, her face glowing. "Honey, try this. Tell me if I'm getting any better." I took a bite. She had even added some of my favorite hot sauce. "It's good," I said. Her eyes lit up. "Really? Really?" I patted her cheek. "Except for the times when you're thinking about your old flame." She stomped her foot in mock anger. "I told you, I'm over." I silenced her with a kiss. She clung to me. "Ethan, I know I was wrong," she murmured against my lips. "I regret it." "Regret what?" I asked quietly, regretting that I didn't realize it sooner. She looked up at me, her eyes swimming. "That I was already in love with you. If I'd known then, I can't even imagine how happy we could have been." "Ethan, can we get married again? Please." I held her chin, studying the redness in her eyes. "Get married again?" I chuckled softly. "Do you deserve it?" Her eyelashes trembled like a butterfly's wings caught in the rain. I know I don't," she whispered, clutching my shirt, her knuckles white. "But I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." I let her go and took a sip of my coffee. It was too sweet, cloyingly sweet, just like her. "Honey," she persisted, pressing against my arm. "The biggest regret of my life was almost losing you." I tilted her chin up, examining her face. "Your acting has improved." "It's not an act," she insisted, her voice rising. "I swear, every single word is." I cut her off with another kiss, my hand sliding under the hem of her nightgown. This time, her cries were louder and more desperate than ever before.